Welcome to the Bald Ambition Podcast. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and this is part 3 of my ongoing series on attention and marketing in the age of AI. The wall. In my prior 2 episodes, I'll share links in the description here if you haven't experienced them yet. I define what I mean by the wall, which is the tsunami of content blasting all of us on the bricks we carry around in our pockets and the screens that are in our faces pretty much every waking second of our lives and probably infiltrating our dreams. Endless streaming content, much of which is social media content designed to get and sustain our attention and implore us to do something. Vote for this candidate, buy this product or service, change your mind about some political issue or party. We are being manipulated every second of every day, and we're willing accomplices to our own submission. We love it. But the wall is the wall for those trying to get and sustain that attention and engender that kind of behavioral change. There's so much of it out there in so many forms that if you are marketing or trying to sell a product or service, you are a creator creating that content. You are a creative with new content. Good luck trying to even scratch at that wall because of the sheer volume of content that's out there. Doesn't matter that millions, billions of people are voracious consumers of content like never before in human history. Never before in human history has there been this much content, such varied content, and content with such a broad range in quality and style and intent. No wonder conspiracy theories abound. No wonder there's so much fake news and misinformation. There's just so much of everything. How can you tell the difference? And of course, politicians, business people take advantage of this flood of data. That is the wall. And the implications of the wall, I lead into part 2, is really the consequences of what I call the death of earned media. Now, that comes across as ironic when some of the best campaigns for products, for services, for politicians, for creators are viral. And I address that by showing how so many of these viral campaigns got lucky. So many of them are manipulation of the algorithms that are there on the platforms themselves, and how the alternative to relying on the luck of the draw of virality is paid advertising. Shoving your content into the face of enough viewers so that your pipeline, your funnel, your marketing funnel can fill, and trickling down, you'll get that tiny niche of a target audience who would love your content anyway if they only got a chance to experience it. And that essentially was part 2. And in part 2, I cap it by describing how the AI revolution, the inflection point that we're all living in and through, offers tremendous opportunity and hope that the products, the services, the creator content, the attention desiring data best matches up with the right audience in the right way at the right time through data transparency. We see all the stuff that's out there. It gets sliced and diced and distributed precisely to those audiences whom have displayed the most and best predilection for its consumption. The AI bridge, the missing link, the perfect form of targeting of any kind of content with any kind of consumer based on the correct or at least comprehensive and precise analysis of that content and a deep understanding of the audience down to the individual consumer as to what they prefer, what they like, what they want, what they love, and bridging that gap. So I ended on a Pollyanna note, but with the bittersweet observation that we're not there yet. We're not even nearly there yet. It's contingent on a few things. The one is the raw AI technology itself. The other issue is interoperability, connection, integration between the platforms. Data is power, power is money. People don't want to share content. It remains siloed. And the only way to really do this is to plug everything together. It's analogous to our healthcare, our broken healthcare IT system, where you have electronic health records from your hospital, from your doctor, from your specialist. You try switching a managed care insurance company, and you try switching a health system. Where is your data? How is it connected? Does your Apple app that tracks your walking and daily behavior, does it communicate to your electronic health records? No. Do we want it to? Yes, ideally, so there could be a comprehensive 360 view of your health with all of its data integrated and analyzed in one place. So it can not only manage your care, but it could prevent disease and accidents. That's the ideal quantified health solution. But we're so far from it, not in so much from the technology itself, but the connectivity and integration between all these different sources of information, which remains siloed, stubbornly siloed. How to connect the dots in terms of the quantified self, how to connect the dots in terms of the social media focused and hungry consumer with the mountains of content that are being created actively for that consumer. The gap remains. The chasm is still wide. So this is part three of The Wall. And here I'd like to focus on how to best manage this chaotic condition before the tipping point of AI in marketing, in communications, in targeting, in media, in advertising has been reached. We're not there yet. We're actually pretty far. What is a marketer or a salesperson or a creator to do? Now, I highlighted in the prior episode my own little world. I rant on TikTok, and I illustrated how my TikTok metrics are exponentially higher for the exact same content that I distribute on that platform as Instagram and even YouTube and Substack. And I've even been throwing my videos on Patreon to trees falling in forests that hardly anyone hears, let alone notices. That all said, TikTok rocks. But I also need to place the onus of not only that disparity, but my inability at this point to crack the code, to hit that Malcolm Gladwell tipping point, to reach the Oppenheimer critical mass of the bomb for the Mookie Spitz media explosion opportunity. It clearly hasn't happened yet. So, in this episode, I'm putting the mirror to myself, and I'm not going to blame Zuckerberg's algorithms and his greed, if you will, to shift me as a creator to a paid model. And I am not going to point to the wall and say that it is too tall for me to climb, but I'm going to take a very self reflective and pragmatic approach, not only to my own content, but as recommendations for others and their content, and from the vantage point of a communications consultant and strategist and novel writer and author and blogger and ranter. What have I learned in doing this? What do I see other people doing well and not so well within this chasm between the old school and the new school? And how can we get to where we need to go in lieu of the bots directing traffic? Now, allow me to start by looking under the hood of my own content. A vast majority of my own content is a talking head video. I literally hold my phone to my face. I flip the switch, that little icon that shifts the camera from the back to the front of my smartphone, and I adjust the angle, usually conscious of trying not to project too much double chin, and hit record. That is the extent of my prep. Now, usually I'll have an idea, but I don't rehearse my videos. I have a general flavor for what I want to talk about, and I rely on my own abilities to riff, to improvise, as I'm doing right now. None of my podcasts are scripted, and everything that you've heard in parts 1 and 2 and now 3 were basically executed the same way. I'm literally holding my smartphone to my face near the microphone to try to get a good quality recording. I pump this into, or this is getting pumped into the Riverside app, which is useful for creators such as myself. And it provides a transcript of everything that I'm saying. And when I interview other people or I have other guests, I have 2 tracks. It's a nice piece of software. I can adjust relative volumes, and I even get a transcript of the conversation that is editable. So if I delete a word or a phrase or a paragraph in the transcript, it automatically splices that digital tape together, as it were, and creates a seamless experience for the most part. So then I export that. I use another app called Sound Lab with a little EDM track that my DJ friend Howie Wallach created for me. I pop that at the beginning, as you've heard. And then I upload that WAV file after it's been exported to Buzzsprout, which is an application that enables me to distribute my podcast to virtually all the major platforms with one tap. I write the little description, I put in any links, and then I add an image, and then it appears everywhere, basically. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Outcast, what have you. Wherever you're hearing this, it came from Buzzsprout. And I pay all these people. I pay Riverside, I pay SoundLab, I pay Buzzsprout. And it's not big, but it's not nothing. And I love it. And it's convenience, it's technology, it's ease of use, and it's absolutely unprecedented. So I don't have a studio, I don't have a fancy mic. I'm literally recording from my phone. Great. Why do I describe this? Well, I am talking ease of use. And when it comes to my content, I don't do many of the things that are expected of me within an earned media environment. For example, I am a talking head in my kitchen or on my patio or taking a walk. That's the entirety of my ranting and video reeled presence. I don't chop up my podcasts into little pieces as I probably should and could for the sake of just blasting little clips to get people excited, because people don't sit down and listen to an hour, 2 hour long podcast unless they're already in it to win it. Joe Rogan and Mark Maron were trailblazers in the podcasting modality going back a long time when people didn't even really know what podcasts were. They were doing it way before podcasting was cool. They were doing it way before they themselves made podcasting cool. And they don't have to worry about creating little clips, although you could find little clips. They've got a team because they have tens of millions of downloads a month. And they have guests from Barack Obama to Donald Trump to MMA fighters to Brad Pitt to Ray Liotta to all the major A-list celebrities, because everyone has finally recognized, to the point our politicians have recognized, at least the Republicans in this election recognize, much to their advantage, that podcasts are huge for reaching a huge audience. Another example is Rick Beato on YouTube. He is a wonderful musician and music producer. He plays guitar, he plays some drums, he plays bass, and he talks about essentially classic rock and roll. That's his focus. And he started, I believe, in 2014, 10 years ago maybe, with a single video showcasing how his young son had perfect pitch. He would play a note and his son would get it right. And he's a special kind of kid with a special kind of ear. I believe he was able to play two notes together as a mini chord, and his son could identify both notes in that mini chord. So a real prodigy, his son. And that one YouTube video went viral. And then Rick, who's a music producer and a musician himself, started talking about music. And one thing led to another. And the music industry only recently has come to acknowledge his reach. So he has had billions of views. And only recently has the music industry smelled the coffee of his viral success. And now you see everyone from David Gilmour to iconic musicians on the Rick Beato show. It used to be a fringe YouTube channel. And now he's got better guests and more reach than the most popular music shows or interviews ever. And that shows you the power of earned media. That shows you the power of doing it in what I called in episode 1 here, part 1 of The Wall, the old school way. Rick Beato isn't pumping ads. He's rolling with the flow of the viral popularity of his great videos, and he's engendered a positive feedback loop based on his content. So that's another example of someone who's used essentially earned media to make it. But we're talking about people who have done that Malcolm Gladwell tipping point, who have flipped the scale, who built critical mass and exploded and are off to the races. What I'm getting at here is a younger creator, me, as an example, still living in the dark. And here's where I put the mirror to myself. I'm a guy with the camera pointed at my bald head ranting. And I'm ranting right now in long form, and I'm not playing by the rules. And part of the rules in viral video is that you keep it moving and you keep it active. Even 1 minute in video online is ancient history. People watch for 1,000, 2, 1, bye, gone. If you're a talking head and you're revealing that there's an imminent alien invasion, or you have seen God and can prove it, or you have the cure to cancer, if you can't get it out of your face in under 5 seconds, you're done. They're going to pass you by. So I am not following the rules, and I have ranted about this. I'm not putting together these fancy pastiche style videos. I'm not out on the street interviewing people and talking to people about their lives. I am ranting instead of listening, and I am exclusive rather than inclusive. Consider the campaign of Mamdani in New York City, the progressive left-leaning candidate who annihilated Andrew Cuomo, wrecked him in the Democratic primary for mayor of New York. Just happened this week. This is a virtual perfect expose of how old school paid media ram down people's throats with talking heads and bullshit, was wrecked by a young, charismatic, populist politician who went around neighborhoods with his phone and asked people on the street how they just couldn't afford living in New York anymore. And the relatability went through the roof. And the viral dissemination of his message and video went through the roof. Mamdani annihilated Cuomo, both in terms of his attitude, his approach, and his utilization of current media and its tools. Now, this campaign flies in the face, ostensibly, of what I was saying in part one, which is the death of the end of earned media, having to rely on paid media just to break through, and this kind of waiting period until the bots can help us get to the other side. And I want to qualify the difference. If you are a politician, it behooves you to use the tools of the trade, and you are already relying on the critical mass of an identity and a purpose, which is ostensibly populist. You might run your campaign from the vantage point of policy first and message second, so your message becomes your policy. Cue up Kamala Harris, cue up Hillary Clinton, lose, lose, or your message could be your policy, which is your policy is more or less irrelevant. It's all about your personality and how you're going to snap your fingers and make all the problems go away, and how the people you hate are going to be hated by this politician you love. Cue up Donald J. Trump. There's endless variation to this dance, but the dance is utilizing earned media and viral media for success. So, mirror, mirror back on me. What I have learned and what creators need to learn is that in this era of the wall, paid media will definitely help, But in lieu of paid media, if you're not, and here is the key essence of part 3, if you're not getting the engagement that you're looking for with the kind of content that you're throwing out there, either you need just a little bit more time to build, to build, to build, to build until you reach that tipping point, and likely, or you're doing it in an old school way that's really swimming upstream. Back to me. I'm a talking head ranting. I am explicating rather than implicating. I am exclusive rather than inclusive. And I'm basically barfing out my point of view and my opinions for people to take it or leave it. Now, this is a proven approach. And it's a category of communication. It's the talking head. And our social media feeds are inundated with analogous approaches. And some folks have millions of followers doing exactly what I'm doing. But again, mirror, mirror, if I wanted to heighten my engagement, it behooves me to change it up. So instead of ranting about my book, which I love so much, take it or leave it, create some kind of innovative and engaging video that brings the book to life so that people can emotionally relate to it without being talked to or talked at. You can't convince people to love something. You can't hold something up or demonstrate it and then expect people to flock in droves and embrace it. Even if you pour a suitcase full of money out onto the street, people are going to kind of look at that for a second and think to themselves, what the fuck? Only after the first person makes that move and starts grabbing at that cash, and then when other people see the look of satisfied greed and insatiable lust, as that person starts grabbing more and more of the money, are other people assured that this situation is for real and they can emotionally connect with this circumstance and dive into the fray? People need the validation of other people to believe in something, decide on something, make a move. That's human nature. We are programmed that way. I really think, from a social Darwinian point of view, most people are, as Nietzsche mentioned, part of the herd. Don't feel insulted. I'm sure you're not one of them because you're listening to a smart guy podcast. But you get what I mean. Most people are instinctive followers. They will not like a restaurant unless other people say it's good. People won't endorse a brand, use a service, unless it's socially reinforced by their tribe. We are wired this way. It's a protective mechanism. It is an instinctive programming to educate and empower members of a tribe to follow the rules of the tribe. People need that kind of assurance. So back to the Mamdani campaign. The Mamdani campaign was immersed on the streets of New York, and it addressed the primary concern that all New Yorkers face. New York is absolutely unaffordable. And Mamdani did the 1-2 punch, which is, look, I'm hearing from all these people. I'm not saying it. You're saying it. I can't afford basic rent and food, and taking a bus is $3 a trip. and it's unlivable and it's unsustainable. And I would vote for you, Mr. Mamdani, if you could change it. Crosscut, I'm Mr. Mamdani and I'm gonna change it. Woohoo! Now, does he come across as a populist? As much a populist as Donald Trump is a populist, but from a diametrically opposite vantage point. Well, I would venture to say that that's the case. How realistic is it to have government funded grocery stores, to have comprehensive years long rent control, to boost taxes? It ain't. And I lived in New York, and I would just venture to add my own opinion is that it shouldn't be the case for all sorts of consequences downstream that are worse than the current unaffordability of New York City. But that's a whole separate conversation right there. The point I'm making, though, is that yes, an earned campaign in 2025 can go ballistic, but it follows certain rules. And that's the point of part 3 here. In order to cut through the noise, in order to scratch at, climb, and break through that wall of attention, here's a few things that I would like to share. And I am ranting as much for myself as for you, as a marketer, as a salesperson, in your life, talking to your kids, dealing with family members, colleagues. Hey, you got to tell a compelling story. And that story is something that's relatable to your audience in a way where your audience feels included. They're not just sitting back and watching something unfold, they're actively emotionally engaged with it. If you expect the stickiness that's necessary for whatever it is you're doing to cut through all that noise, to scratch at, climb, and break through the wall. That's number one in concept. And in practice, nobody likes a smartass. You could bloviate all you want about how awesome sauce, whatever it is that you're trying to sell or market or create. But according to that first best practice, you need to get the audience emotionally engaged. It's not about you, it's about them. So people do like seeing talking heads, and it's a popular modality, motif. But if I wanted to break free of this, or at least get to the next level, I need to turn the tide. I need to take the camera, and instead of it focusing it on my bald head, I need to focus it at the world and at the audience. And it needs to be a reflection of them and not me. That's number one. And then number 2, I need that story and that sense of inclusivity and engagement to also drive toward a reward. So when you see me ranting on social media, the best case scenario is you vehemently agree or disagree with me to the point you leave a comment and you share. That's the essence of viral dissemination, and you like it because then the algorithms, even the shitty ones on Meta, will pick it up. And my success on TikTok my biggest successes had to do with communities of people where I was advocating on their behest. One example is I did a video that was opposed to mass deportation. And the Latin American community swept it up. I've got close to 600,000 views for one video that I did. And it was a video not too different than any of my other videos. I'm in my kitchen. I start by setting up the problem. I use examples of why the current solution or approach is bad or another one is good. I draw out the implications, And then I end with a call to action, which in this case is don't deport people who have been here forever and are minding their own business and are working and contributing to our society. That video, again, in terms of my appearance, in terms of the captioning, in terms of its length, was really no different than dozens, hundreds of videos that I've already done that got 1/10, 100th, 1,000th the traction on TikTok. Why? Because I was advocating on behest of an established, entrenched community through the lens of their interests to benefit them. So, the oldest lesson in all of this is to summarize that earned media is still viable and is still the way to go. In contrast to everything I'm saying, Cuomo's campaign was boring, old school talking heads, fear factor, running on traditional TV channels, repetitive, and breaking every rule that I just espoused. It wasn't inclusive, didn't talk to the people, didn't listen to people, and did not have a digitally native feel to it. And I'm a cusp boomer, and I understand that I have my own implicit biases here. And maybe through this 3-part series that I'm doing, I am ranting myself out of the old habits and the rationalization that I don't like production. And by that, I mean, I just want to grab my camera and I just want to talk. Just like I grab my microphone here and I rant on this. And I do think that there's a viable opportunity for even this shit to air quote go viral. And maybe I am just being impatient and I want to break through, and I haven't yet because it just takes time and throwing the dice and throwing the dice. But I am behooving myself. I am throwing down the gauntlet to myself through this process of trying to understand media now in this chasm between old school and new school, between traditional, digital, and the AI inevitability to acknowledge what works and what doesn't. And what works is inclusion. And what works is creating content that's emotionally resonant. And what doesn't work is barking at people or presenting oneself as the arbiter of truth when everyone's really looking for empathy and a conversation. So consider me Cuomo in that sense. However, that's not to say that all my ranting in part 1 and in part 2 wasn't true. Even if you obey all the rules, there's no guarantee of virality. And you're still scratching at trying to climb, let alone break through the wall. But here's the thing for part 3. You got a better chance at doing so if you do follow the simple rules of digital marketing, communication, engagement, and social media in 2025. And I'll summarize them real quick, as much for me as for you or whomever might be listening or care, or for that matter, not care. These are happening independent of my rant. The biggest rule of all is be inclusive. Shift your focus from you, the creator, the marketer, the salesperson, the author, the bloviator, to the needs and expectations of an audience. They are hungry not only for ideas and insights, but emotional assurance. They want to feel better. They want a flattering reflection of themselves in whatever it is that you do. When Mamdani did these videos, you couldn't even tell at first what the hell the video was really about or where it was headed. You just saw some dude talking to people in New York who were frustrated as to how expensive everything was and how they hoped that they could have free buses. And then, as a matter of fact, at the end, the call to action, the attention to engagement to conversion was, oh, by the way, if you want all that shit to actually happen, vote for me in the primary. I think effective content is that, where you let the people and their needs speak for themselves. This harkens back to the theme of this podcast series, Bald Ambition, where I've already interviewed key people in startups, organization and development, in marketing, in consultancy, in government regulation. And their success is all contingent on providing benefits to clients. It's not in how smart they are. It's not in their amazing solutions. It's in their empathy and their willingness and eagerness to listen to the pain points and needs of their audience and provide solutions which engender benefits for their clients, driving their business. And it's the same rules that apply to content online. So is that a guarantee of viral success? Is that a guarantee for cutting through the noise, for scratching at, climbing, and maybe breaking through that wall? Well, no, the wall is so high and thick that you can follow all the rules and amount to a fart in church. There's a lot of variables. But not following those rules and stubbornly clinging to an old school model that was declarative instead of inclusive, that was repetitive instead of dynamic, and relying on paid media to saturate traditional channels with bullshit doesn't really work either. And that is the takeaway of part 3 here is we live in this chaotic limbo now between those traditional techniques, between this almost populist flair for engaging people emotionally on their own terms, creating a viral swirl that self-reinforces people's excitement, but also their agitation, and this inevitable future where all of our content will be matched with our audience in a way that's self-selective and based on the information. But even then, let's imagine this AI bot future of 100% data transparency and comprehensive analytics, both on the side of that mountain of data that I described and the hyper segmented target population down to the individual consumer and their profile. Let's pretend that it's activated in a way that's not only feasible but effective. Then what? Your product, your service, your novel, your whatever still needs to resonate with the end user. It still needs to make a connection. It still needs to provide benefit. It still needs to be its own connection between you, the creator, the person who has offered that product or service, bringing that business to bear, and your consumer. The bots will help connect, but then it's up to you. all over again. And then you're back to square one, which is listening more than talking, doing more than saying, and relying on your client to reinforce your actions rather than your own hope and aspiration for being a smartass or doing such a good job that people have no choice but to admire you and buy your shit. And that, I believe, is my ongoing learning experience, which is it's okay to be enraptured by your own content, your own product, your own service. And you might even be right about that. Your content, your product, your service might really be all that. But it's not about you. It's about anyone eager and willing to indulge you with the privilege of benefiting them with what you have to offer. It's always been that way. It's always going to be that way. And you could fight it or you could dive into it. And your success or your failure will be contingent on exactly how well you do just that. So, is earned media dead? Well, no, but it only works if you do it the right way, where you actually earn it. And is paid media the only crutch? No, because if you do it the wrong way, it doesn't matter if you have $5 or $5 billion, it's not going to resonate. But again, if you do it the right way and you've got that backing, then you can greatly accelerate any opportunity that would be there before you with the help of accelerating that kind of content. And will the bots take over tomorrow? No. And we can't rely on AI to really do our work for us, but we can anticipate the future in a way where we could best prepare for it and learn in lieu of the bots taking over what the bots will ideally do. And that is connect us with the right people in the right way who, going back to my points earlier, have a natural disposition to love and embrace what you do. If you're a populist politician, then the essence of your success or failure isn't so much in how well you govern, but in how well you get attention and are given the opportunity to govern. That perhaps is the number one paradox and peril of democracy in 2025. That those best suited to run things are likely the least suited to get themselves in the position to do so because it's a completely different set of skills to go out there and get everyone's attention and love because ultimately you need to placate your audience. And conversely, the other paradox is that there are mountains of terrific products and services and creative content that either don't see the light of day or don't see nearly as much light of day as they should because it's a completely different skill set to get that attention, to scratch at, climb, and break through that wall. Who said that you had to be a wall climber to write a great book or invent the latest cool gizmo or start a company that solves so many problems so well for so many people? It's a completely different skill set. And perhaps even more importantly, and even more paradoxically, it's a completely different attitude. There's that that song from way back when. I'll be the brains, you be the brawn. Together we'll make lots of money. I think the Pet Shop Boys sang that song. It was pretty pop, pretty catchy. I saw them at Madison Square Garden with New Order. I thought New Order, the reincarnated Joy Division, would blow them off the stage, and I found the Pet Shop Boys show breathtaking. It was like David Byrne's Talking Heads electrified and taken to the next level. The Pet Shop Boys. I've got the smarts and you've got the marketing and communications acumen. Together we'll make lots of money. James Joyce in The Unreadable and Unread Finnegan's Wake had two brothers, Shem and Sean. And Shem was the author of the word. He created. He was the creator of the thing, the idea, the gizmo, the book, the product, the service, the startup is Shem, the creative genius. And Sean, his brother, had no idea what the hell Shem was talking about or what he did or the value or benefit of Shem's genius. But Sean was able to put out the soapbox and get people excited about it. It's tough to bring these two worlds together. It's like finding a great rhythm and lead guitar player. Usually you have a natural disposition to one. Eric Clapton was booed by some of his contemporaries. I think Jimi Hendrix complained that Eric Clapton never played much rhythm. He was just a lead kind of guy. But then you had the truly monumental, iconic, and transformative musicians, if you ask me. Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, Eddie Van Halen, who I cited, I think, earlier in this podcast stream. These people were able to play both rhythm and lead. They were able to write songs and play them. And I think that's the number one takeaway here, that in order to be successful in this multimedia, multimodal, multi-channel age, we need to drop the trope that we specialize in any one thing, and we all understand and embrace the currency of our age, which is the pursuit of attention and the delivery of amazing whatever. So there you have it. That's the 3 parts of my wall series, which erupted spontaneously as I myself am trying to scratch at, climb, and break through that wall. And I'm learning, and I've got my own good and bad habits. And I myself don't know really what can and can work. But the one thing that I have going for me, and this is what might flip it at the end of the day, you can have somebody who's a genius at creating a viral video or two, and you can have another person who's all spectrumy and lurking in the corner and creating masterpieces in the dark. But I think you kind of have to be Picasso about this. And I'm not talking about the world-class historic talent the man had, but in being prolific. Just keep doing it. Don't overthink it. Don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. Don't see a viral video and just try to copy it. Don't agonize in the production of something. Just get it out there. I'm interacting with a lot of creators now. I'm trying to partner up with art people. I want to turn my novel into a graphic novel. And I'm just getting folks who are just not in it to win it. I did another podcast just the other day, going for the long game. You can sit here and strategize and bloviate like I have for the last few hours on this stream, but just keep doing what you're doing. Eventually, something could and should pop. And even if it doesn't, you had the satisfaction of just cranking stuff out. Don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Even if you're doing it the totally wrong way, just keep doing it the totally wrong way in different ways and do it a lot. And chances are, sooner or later, bots or no bots, virality or no virality, a paid campaign, or just really an earned approach where you just keep doing it because you love it, you're guaranteed success. And the metrics of that success could and should be the intrinsic satisfaction just of the doing, because that is contagious. That is viral. Have the attitude that you love what you do, and what you do is marketing, selling, creating, and everything else should fall into place. Thank you for listening to the Bald Ambition Podcast. I'll be ranting more about this. I'll be tracking my own reflections of self as I try to break through. And I'm eager to hear back from you if you want to share your own experiences with the wall.